The cold metal bars bit into Marcus Kane's wrists as he slammed his forehead against the cage's unforgiving frame. A guttural hiss escaped his lips, barely muffled by the sterile silence of the containment chamber. Beside him, the monstrous silhouette of the xenomorph overlord loomed, its grotesque. Elongated head slick, with the glistening sheen of fresh blood, dripping relentlessly onto the floor stained with the remains of the fallen. The creature's sinewy tail thrashed in slow, deliberate arcs, each movement a terrifying reminder of its lethal power. Marcus's breath came in short, ragged bursts, heart hammering against his ribs like a war drum. Why am I trapped here, locked in with the deadliest being humanity has ever encountered? The question clawed at his mind, igniting a flicker of defiant fire amid the overwhelming fear. His mind raced through every tactical manual he'd ever memorized, every encounter where he'd stared death in the face and refused to blink. Can I turn this nightmare into an ally? Can I harness that savage fury for the fight yet to come? He forced his eyes upward, meeting the creature's gaze, or what he could interpret as a gaze beneath that glistening exoskeleton. The xenomorph's chittering breaths echoed like the whisper of a predator sizing up its prey. Yet beneath that primal menace, Marcus sensed something else, a raw, untamed rage that might be shaped, channeled, weaponized. "Focus, Kane," he muttered under his breath, voice hoarse but steady. "You're not just a prisoner, you're the key." The clang of boots outside the chamber snapped him back. Voices sharp, clipped commands, filtered through the reinforced walls, but their words were lost beneath the pounding of his own pulse. He clenched his jaw, every muscle taut, as shadows danced beyond the cage's confines. Marcus Kane was no ordinary soldier. Once, he commanded elite strike teams in the outer colonies, harshest war zones. His name was whispered in military corridors with a mixture of respect and caution, an operator who didn't just rely on firepower but wielded strategy like a scalpel. Every mission was a chess match, every enemy a piece to be outmaneuvered. Yet the man standing behind those bars was a far cry from the legend etched in classified reports. The betrayal that had led him here was as sharp and venomous as any bullet wound. The asterisk, his own command, had turned on him, not openly, not with a firefight, but with cold calculation. A setup so precise that, when the overlord breached their facility, Marcus was pinned as the scapegoat for the catastrophic failure. His team scattered, his reputation shredded and now discarded like refuse. He recalled the last moments before his capture, a brutal firefight in the depths of the abandoned research station on LV-426. He had ordered a tactical retreat, but a sudden explosion severed the comms. When he regained consciousness, he was shackled and dragged here to this metallic tomb. His mind drifted briefly to his team, if they still lived, if any of them believed the truth. But those thoughts were quickly drowned by the harsh reality before him. "What do they want?" Marcus whispered, his voice trembling despite his efforts to steady it. "Why put me with asterisk it?" The question wasn't just rhetorical. The military brass who orchestrated this nightmare had reasons, dark and twisted. The overlord was more than a creature. It was a weapon, a force of nature unleashed in the war for survival. Perhaps they believed Marcus's tactical mind could bend the beast's fury to their will. Or maybe they wanted to see him broken. He pressed his palm against the cold steel of the cage, then glanced at the xenomorph again. The creature's head tilted slightly, the biomechanical hiss shifting into something almost curious. Marcus's mind raced. He had studied the xenomorph species extensively, primary instincts driven by survival, territorial dominance, and protection of their hive. This overlord was the apex, a terrifying blend of intelligence and raw power. If he could communicate, even just enough to manipulate its rage, the tide of the coming conflict might shift. A sudden clatter outside the cage made Marcus jump. The creature's tail snapped forward, narrowly missing his arm. He yanked it back, heart pounding. "Easy," he said, voice low but firm. "I'm not your enemy, not yet." The xenomorph's mandibles clicked, a chilling sound like serrated blades scraping metal. Yet it didn't strike. Instead, it reared back, muscles coiling like a spring. Marcus swallowed the lump in his throat and forced himself to meet those alien eyes again. "You're angry, they killed your kin." He gestured to the bloodied carcasses littering the floor. "I get it, I'm angry too." The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. He could almost feel the weight of the creature's thoughts pressing down, a primal intelligence wrestling with rage and instinct. In that moment, Marcus's mind flashed back to his training, psychological tactics, negotiation under pressure, understanding the enemy's motives beyond the battlefield. Could he apply the same principles here? Could he find common ground with a monster born of nightmares? The clang of the cage's lock echoed sharply, and a cold voice crackled through the intercom. "Kane, this is your last warning. Cooperate or you'll be left as food." Marcus's lips curled into a bitter smile. "They don't get it," he whispered. "I'm not here to die, I'm here to win." He shifted slightly, easing the tension in his shoulders. The cage was a prison, yes, but also a stage, a crucible where fear met resolve, and where an unlikely alliance might be forged in blood and fire. The overlord's tail thudded against the floor again, slower this time, almost rhythmically. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "It's waiting, testing me." He reached slowly into his pocket, fingers brushing against the cold metal of a small, concealed tool, a relic from his days as a covert operative. Not a weapon to kill, but a device to communicate. If only he could get close enough. If only the creature's rage could be tempered into something he could channel. "Let's try this," Marcus murmured, leaning closer to the cage bars. "I'm not your enemy. We're both prisoners here, trapped by those who fear us. But if we work together, maybe we can break free." A sudden sharp hiss erupted from the xenomorph, its biomechanical jaw clicking open wide. For a terrifying moment, Marcus thought the creature would strike. Instead, it emitted a low, guttural sound, almost like a growl of acknowledgement. Marcus's heart seized in his chest. It was a fragile spark in a sea of darkness, but it was there. This is the beginning, he thought, not the end. Suddenly, his mind replayed the memories that shaped him, the battles, the betrayals, the narrow escapes that forged his unyielding will. He was a soldier, yes, but more than that, a survivor. And if survival meant turning a nightmare into an ally, then so be it. The cage rattled as footsteps approached again, voices louder this time, urgency bleeding through their commands. The war outside was not waiting, and neither could Marcus. He straightened, eyes burning with a new kind of determination. "Whatever happens next," he whispered, "I'm not alone anymore." And for the first time since his capture, the cold steel of his prison felt less like a tomb, and more like the first step toward a reckoning. Marcus Kane's eyes snapped open at the sudden jolt of the cage shaking violently. The harsh metallic clangs echoed in the small, dimly lit containment chamber, the air thick with the scent of ozone and decay. He pushed himself up from the cold floor, muscles aching, every breath a ragged rasp against the stale atmosphere. His fingers dug into the unforgiving steel bars as he tried to steady his racing heart. A low, menacing growl vibrated through the chamber, originating from the xenomorph overlord's massive form crouched beside him. The creature's elongated head turned slowly, its glossy black eyes locking onto Marcus with an intensity that sent a shiver through his spine. Yet beneath the overwhelming menace, Marcus detected something unexpected, a flicker of restrained fury, not blind aggression. It was a warning, but perhaps also a signal. "Calm down, Marcus muttered, voice hoarse but resolute. We're both trapped in this hellhole. His gaze flicked to the shredded bodies lying scattered across the floor, remnants of previous victims, twisted and broken. And if we play their game, we're both dead. The overlord's tail lashed once, then twice, the tip tapping rhythmically against the metal floor. Marcus's mind raced, piecing together what little he knew from the fragments overheard between the alien guards beyond. The reinforced walls, this was no mere prison, it was a laboratory. A twisted crucible, where a faction of alien renegades sought to weaponize the xenomorph's terrifying biology against humanity itself. The revelation ignited a fire deep within Marcus, a mix of revulsion and grim determination. He clenched his jaw. They don't just want to contain us. They want to use us. His thoughts drifted involuntarily to the faces he had lost, the family torn apart by the ceaseless war against these merciless invaders. The memories were sharp and painful, his wife's scream as the colony fell, his daughter's pleading eyes just before the explosion. It was this personal hell that fueled his unyielding will, a burning core of vengeance and protection that refused to be extinguished. The overlord shifted, its carapace scraping against the steel bars, emitting a low, guttural hiss that reverberated through the chamber. Marcus swallowed hard, stepping closer despite the risk. "I know you're angry," he said quietly, locking eyes with the beast. "I am too, but anger won't save either of us here. Only cooperation." For a moment, the chamber was silent except for the distant hum of machinery and the occasional drip of liquid echoing from somewhere deeper within the alien complex. Then something remarkable happened. The overlord's mandibles clicked softly, a sound that was both alien and curiously deliberate. It didn't lunge or thrash. Instead, it seemed to assess him, as if measuring the sincerity of his words. Marcus exhaled slowly, fighting the instinct to recoil. He reached into the pocket of his worn combat jacket, fingers closing around a small, cylindrical device, a makeshift translator and communicator he'd managed to conceal during his capture. His hope was fragile, but it was the only tool he had to bridge the vast gulf between human and xenomorph. "Listen," Marcus said, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "There's a faction within your own ranks, those aliens holding us here. They want to turn you into a weapon against my people. But that weapon will be broken if we don't stop them." The overlord's head tilted slightly, emitting a sharp hiss that vibrated through the chamber's walls. Marcus took a cautious step back, watching for any sign of hostility. Instead, the creature's tail tapped again, slower this time, almost like a deliberate beat. "I don't trust you," Marcus admitted aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. "But right now, you're my only chance." He paused, searching the alien's dark eyes for any sign of understanding. "If we don't find a way out of this, they'll experiment on us both. Turn us into weapons of destruction against each other." A faint rumble echoed in the overlord's chest, a sound Marcus recognized from his studies as a form of communication. Among the xenomorphs, it was neither a threat nor a greeting. It was a warning, one that Marcus took seriously. Footsteps thundered outside the chamber. Voices barked orders in an unfamiliar, guttural tongue. The cage rattled, and the overhead lights flickered ominously. Marcus's muscles tensed as the reality of their situation crashed down on him. They were not only prisoners but pawns in a dangerous internal war among the extraterrestrial forces. Suddenly, a harsh voice crackled through a speaker mounted near the cell. "Kane, you will cooperate with our scientists, or you will be terminated. The overlord will be used to ensure compliance." Marcus's jaw clenched. "Tell them this isn't cooperation," he said coldly. "It's survival." He turned back to the xenomorph, whose head now hovered mere inches from his face, mandibles clicking softly. "We're the same in here," Marcus continued. "Trapped, hunted, and used. But if we can work together, even for a moment, we might just break their chains." The creature's eyes glimmered with something almost like recognition. Marcus felt a strange kinship, an unspoken bond forged in the crucible of shared captivity and mutual defiance. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, as the two adversaries remained locked in silent negotiation. Marcus's mind replayed countless battles, not just against alien threats, but against the betrayals of those he once trusted. This moment was different. Here, in the darkness of the cage, survival depended not on firepower but on fragile trust. Suddenly, the overlord's tail curled around a loose piece of metal debris on the floor. With deliberate precision, it nudged the shard toward Marcus. Surprised, Marcus picked it up, examining the jagged fragment. It wasn't much, but it was a tool, a weapon, or perhaps a key. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly, the words feeling strange yet necessary. "We start with small steps." Outside, the footsteps grew louder, the alien faction's impatience palpable. The cage's lock mechanism clicked ominously, signaling the approach of their captors. Marcus's eyes met the overlord's once more, the fierce alien gaze now tempered with something new, an alliance forged. Not by friendship but by necessity. "Whatever happens," Marcus whispered, "we face it together." The cage door hissed open, and the harsh floodlights spilled into the cell. Armed guards stormed in, but Marcus stood taller, confidence surging through his veins. The nightmare was far from over, but the first thread of hope had been woven between two sworn enemies. As the guards advanced, Marcus whispered to the xenomorph, "Hold your fire for now. We've got bigger enemies out there." The overlord emitted a low, approving hiss, its massive form coiling like a predator poised to strike, but restrained for the moment. Marcus Kane, the soldier who had lost everything to this war, now faced his darkest trial yet. But in the heart of the cage, beside the very embodiment of humanity's nightmare, a fragile alliance had taken root, a spark that could ignite the rebellion to come. And in that cold, merciless prison, Marcus's resolve hardened. He would survive, he would fight, and one way or another. He would protect humanity from the horrors waiting beyond these walls, even if it meant standing beside the monster to do so. Marcus Kane pressed his back against the cold steel wall of the containment chamber, every nerve screaming as he measured the distance between himself and the towering form of the xenomorph overlord. The creature's obsidian carapace shimmered faintly under the harsh fluorescent lights, and its multifaceted eyes locked onto him with an intensity that was both terrifying and strangely inquisitive. Marcus's heart thudded uncontrollably, but he forced himself to remain still, breathing shallow and steady, as if the slightest sudden movement could provoke an immediate, fatal response. His hands curled into fists, nails biting into his palms, grounding him. Focus, Kane, study it, learn its rhythm, find the cracks in the armor. The memories of countless covert operations flooded his mind, moments when patience and observation had been the difference between death and victory. Now, trapped in this metal cage with the apex predator of nightmares. Those lessons had never been more critical. The overlord shifted, its elongated head tilting, as if attempting to decipher Marcus's presence beyond the bars. Its tail flicked with measured precision, the tip tapping the floor in slow, deliberate beats, almost like a signal. Marcus's gaze flickered to the rhythm, noting the pattern. Is it testing me, or warning me? Suddenly, a sharp click echoed through the chamber. The overlord's mandibles parted slightly, releasing a low, guttural hiss that resonated deep within the metallic confines. To an untrained ear, it would have been pure menace, but Marcus caught a flicker of something else beneath the sound: curiosity. Maybe even an attempt at communication. He swallowed the dry lump rising in his throat and spoke softly, I'm not your enemy. Not yet. His voice was rough, strained by stress and dehydration, but he willed it calm. We're both prisoners here, trapped by those who want to use us, tear us apart. His eyes searched the creature's dark gaze, desperate for a flicker of understanding. The overlord's tail ceased its tapping and curled lazily around a jagged shard of metal on the floor. Marcus's pulse quickened as the creature nudged the shard toward him with the tip of its tail. Slowly, deliberately, Marcus reached out and grasped the fragment, feeling its cold, sharp edge bite into his palm. It was a small, crude gesture, but within the brutal confines of this cage, it spoke volumes. "Thank you," Marcus whispered, voice barely audible, yet heavy with significance. "Maybe we can help each other." The words felt foreign in his mouth. As if forging an alliance with this alien terror was a betrayal of everything he thought himself to be. But survival demanded pragmatism, not sentiment. His mind raced back to the snippets of overheard conversations beyond. The cage walls, the alien soldiers speaking in harsh, guttural tones about harvesting specimens and weaponizing rage. The overlord's fury was not an uncontrollable force. It was a tool, manipulated through signals Marcus had yet to fully comprehend. He recalled from his covert intelligence files scattered mentions of a unique high-frequency sound and a pungent chemical scent capable of triggering and modulating the xenomorph's aggression. Could I use that? The thought was terrifying yet tantalizing. If he could harness that key, perhaps he could bend the creature's rage into a weapon, not against him, but against their mutual captors. A sudden clatter shattered the fragile calm. The reinforced door to the chamber screeched open, and a squad of alien soldiers flooded the room, their weapons raised and scanning. Marcus's body tensed, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to snap. The overlord's eyes flared with rage, its tail lashing violently, mandibles clicking fiercely. "Stay back," Marcus hissed urgently, stepping between the soldiers and the creature. "Don't provoke it." One of the aliens emitted a series of rapid clicks, issuing orders in their guttural tongue. Marcus recognized the tone as a command to seize the overlord forcibly, to harvest the creature as they had planned. But the situation had changed. The fragile alliance had shifted the balance. Marcus's voice dropped to a harsh whisper, "Listen to me. They want us both dead or worse, but if we stand together—" He paused, searching the alien's face for any flicker of recognition. "We might just survive." The alien soldiers hesitated, eyes darting between Marcus and the overlord. Then, as if signaling a reluctant truce, they lowered their weapons slightly, backing away into the shadows. The tension in the room did not dissipate, it thickened, a tangible force. But for now, overt violence was held at bay. Marcus's mind reeled with the implications. This is only the beginning. The real challenge lies ahead. He turned his attention back to the overlord, whose head now bobbed rhythmically, the tail tapping a steady pulse against the floor. Marcus's fingers brushed against the communicator device concealed within his jacket, a small relic from his former life. Capable of emitting controlled sound frequencies, he cleared his throat. "I've learned something about your rage. It's not random. It can be triggered and controlled by certain sounds and scents." His voice was steady, precise, born of countless hours spent gathering intelligence and analyzing enemy behavior. "If I can replicate that signal, maybe I can help you control it. Not to harm me, but to fight them." The overlord's head jerked toward him sharply, mandibles clicking in a rapid sequence that Marcus interpreted as a form of acknowledgement. The creature's eyes shimmered with a wild intelligence, far beyond the mindless beast he had first feared. Marcus's heart pounded with a mixture of hope and dread. Approaching the creature to test this theory meant risking his life. One false move, one misread cue, and he would become nothing more than another broken carcass on the cold floor. Yet the alternative, inaction, was certain death. He took a deep breath, steeling himself, and slowly crouched closer. His movements were deliberate, unhurried, designed to convey peace and cautious trust. "I'm going to try something," he said quietly, fingers trembling as he activated the device. A high-frequency tone emitted softly, just within the range he had predicted. The overlord's body stiffened, then relaxed. The tail's thrashing slowed, the mandibles ceased their clicking. The creature emitted a low rumble, almost purring in its own terrifying way. Marcus allowed himself a cautious smile. "It's working." Suddenly, a pungent, musky scent filled the chamber, a chemical agent dispersed from a hidden vent. Marcus recognized it immediately, a synthesized pheromone used to provoke aggression in xenomorphs. His eyes snapped to the overlord, whose eyes flared incandescently. The creature's body tensed like a coiled spring, muscles rippling beneath its exoskeleton. But this time, Marcus held up a hand, activating the sound device again. The high-frequency tone cut through the thickening tension. A battle of wills unfolded in the chamber. The overlord's rage surged, then ebbed, controlled by the interplay of scent and sound. Marcus's fingers worked with precision, modulating the signal, coaxing the beast's fury into a manageable force, a weapon to be wielded, not a blind rage to be feared. His mind churned with the enormity of the moment. "If I can master this, I can turn the overlord's wrath against our captors. But can I trust it not to turn on me first?" The door to the chamber slammed open once again, more alien soldiers pouring in. Their intent unmistakable, to capture and extract the overlord by any means necessary. The creature's eyes blazed with renewed fury, tail lashing in violent arcs. Marcus stepped forward, voice ringing with newfound authority. "Back off, I control this beast now." The lead alien snarled, signaling the troops to advance. Marcus's pulse surged, adrenaline sharpening his senses. He glanced at the overlord, which responded with a guttural growl of acknowledgement, muscles coiling like a predator awaiting the strike. In that split second, Marcus made his choice. "For survival," he whispered to himself, "we fight together." The chamber erupted into chaos as the overlord lunged forward, controlled fury unleashed with devastating precision. Marcus moved in tandem, directing the creature's rage with carefully modulated signals. Their unlikely partnership, a beacon of hope amidst the maelstrom of violence. As the alien soldiers fell back, retreating into the shadows, Marcus felt a surge of triumph tempered by the cold reality ahead. This was only the first battle in a war that would test every ounce of his resolve and cunning. But for now, in the heart of darkness, an alliance born of necessity had taken root, a fragile bond between man and monster, forged in the crucible of survival. And Marcus Kane knew with a grim certainty that neither would emerge unscathed. Yet together they stood a chance. The metallic clang of the cage door reverberated sharply through the cramped chamber as Marcus Kane sat cross-legged on the cold floor, his fingers trembling slightly as they fidgeted, with the makeshift communicator device concealed in his palm. Outside, distant alien voices rippled through the reinforced walls, punctuated by the occasional metallic stomp of heavily armored boots. The tension in the air was suffocating, thick with anticipation and the looming threat of violence. Marcus's gaze flickered nervously to the shadowed silhouette beside him, the xenomorph overlord. Its grotesque form loomed in the dim light, ribbed exoskeleton pulsating subtly. The slick sheen of its carapace, catching the faintest glimmer of the chamber's harsh illumination. Its elongated head tilted slightly, mandibles clicking softly in a rhythm that Marcus had come to interpret as a form of primitive inquiry. The creature's tail curled and snapped intermittently, a pendulum of potential destruction coiled within this cage. A violent storm raged within Marcus's mind. Every survival instinct screamed at him to maintain distance, to keep the monster at bay, to never allow a chink in his defenses. Yet beneath that primal fear, a stubborn ember of hope flickered. Could he, a lone soldier betrayed and imprisoned, wield this nightmare as a weapon against their common enemy? He exhaled slowly, the dry air rasping across his throat. "I have to decide," he muttered, voice barely audible over the hum of alien machinery. "Keep my distance, or take the risk." His fingers traced patterns over the communicator's control panel, running through the sequences he'd painstakingly memorized from stolen data, frequencies capable of triggering the overlord's aggression, but also, if modulated precisely, controlling it. The stakes could not be higher. One misstep and this monstrous being, already a killing machine, could turn on him in an instant. "Overlord," Marcus whispered, shifting closer, his breath shallow and measured. "I'm going to try something. You're not just a beast. You're more, I know that now." His eyes locked with the creature's glossy, obsidian facets, searching for any sign of comprehension. The overlord's tail flicked slowly, the tip tapping the floor in a deliberate pattern. It was a silent challenge, or perhaps an invitation. Marcus's heart hammered as he made his choice. He activated the device, emitting a low-frequency pulse designed to resonate with the xenomorph's neurological pathways. A faint hiss escaped from the creature's mandibles, but it did not recoil or lash out. Instead, it shifted, muscles taut but restrained. "Good," Marcus whispered. "Stay with me." The chamber's lights flickered as footsteps approached. Alien soldiers, their guttural voices sharp with command, prepared once again to enforce their cruel will. Marcus's mind raced. This was the moment of reckoning. He adjusted the device's output, layering a chemical compound synthesized from stolen samples, a pheromone that could incite the overlord's rage, but would also allow Marcus to modulate it. The creature's body tensed, ripples coursing beneath its exoskeleton as its eyes flared with incandescent fury. Yet Marcus raised a steadying hand, signaling calm. The device pulsed again, a soothing counterpoint to the primal rage. The internal conflict within Marcus was fierce. Trust a monster, use it as a weapon. It went against every instinct, every training drilled into him since his earliest days as a soldier. But the alternative, remaining passive, awaiting death or worse, was a certainty he refused to accept. "Listen," he said quietly, voice resolute despite the storm of doubt swirling inside him. "They want to control us both. Use your fury to destroy my people. But what if we turned that fury against them? What if you became the weapon they fear?" The overlord's mandibles clicked sharply, and its tail lashed once, hard, sending a shudder through the cage floor. Marcus flinched but held his ground. "Together," he said firmly, "we can break free." A sharp clang echoed outside as the cage's locking mechanism engaged, signaling the imminent arrival of their captors. The alien soldiers' voices grew louder, more aggressive. Marcus's breath hitched. No turning back now. He adjusted the device's frequency higher, and the overlord's muscles coiled like a spring ready to snap. The creature's guttural growl vibrated through the chamber, a terrifying symphony of rage and power. But now, under Marcus's control, it was a controlled storm. The cage door swung open with a hiss, and a squad of alien warriors flooded in, weapons raised. Their eyes locked onto the monstrous form, anticipation gleaming in their cruel gazes. Marcus stepped forward, voice sharp and commanding. "Stay back, I control this." His tone brooked no argument. The lead alien snarled, signaling his troops to advance anyway. But the overlord surged, a living tempest of sinew and exoskeleton, its tail whipping through the air with lethal precision. The creature's mandibles snapped, teeth like serrated blades glinting as it tore through the ranks of their captors. With terrifying efficiency, Marcus moved in tandem with the beast, modulating the device's signals, guiding the fury like a conductor, directing a deadly orchestra. He dodged falling debris and alien limbs, adrenaline flooding his veins as the battle unfolded in brutal, chaotic rhythm. Amid the carnage, Marcus's mind remained razor-sharp. Strategy was his weapon as much as the overlord's raw power. He spotted the command console near the chamber's entrance, a potential key to disabling the facility's lockdown protocols. "Overlord, cover me," Marcus hissed, sprinting toward the console. The creature's roar echoed behind him, a promise of destruction unleashed. His fingers flew over the controls, bypassing security systems with practiced ease. The lockdown barriers began to retract, the heavy hum of mechanized doors signaling a path to freedom. But then a shadow detached itself from the chaos, a towering figure in alien armor, radiating authority and menace. Strode forward, an extraterrestrial general, eyes glowing with cruel intelligence. His voice boomed in a guttural tongue, but the meaning was clear: challenge. Marcus froze, heart pounding as the general approached, a lethal weapon drawn. This was no mere skirmish. This was the ultimate test. The general sneered, "You think you control the beast? You are blind." Marcus's mind raced. To win, brute force alone would not suffice. He needed to combine the cunning of a seasoned soldier with the raw, untamed power of the overlord. He glanced at the creature, eyes meeting in silent understanding. "We fight as one or die separately." "Overlord," Marcus said, voice steady, "now." He activated the device's highest frequency, triggering the creature's full rage. The overlord lunged at the general with a ferocity that shook the chamber, jaws snapping inches from the alien's armored face. The general countered fiercely, weapons swinging in deadly arcs, but Marcus was already moving, dodging, distracting. Exploiting every opening, he deployed a series of improvised traps, using shards of broken metal and wiring to trip and ensnare the enemy. The battle raged, a brutal dance of strength and strategy. Marcus's body ached, wounds burning, but his mind was clear. This was the culmination of everything he had endured: the betrayals, the losses, the desperate gamble of alliance. With a final surge, the overlord pinned the general against the wall, mandibles closing with a sickening crunch. Marcus stepped forward, breathing hard. "It's over." The chamber fell silent except for the creature's heavy breathing and Marcus's ragged exhale. Pain, relief, and an overwhelming sense of grim victory washed over him. He had risked everything: his life, his sanity, his very soul, to forge this unlikely bond with a monster. But the war was far from won, as the facility's lockdown disengaged. A corridor bathed in harsh white light beckoned, the path to freedom, or perhaps a new nightmare. Marcus looked once more at the overlord, now calm, its rage spent but its power undeniable. "We did it," he said softly, "together." The creature emitted a low, resonant hiss, a sound that to Marcus felt almost like approval. In that moment, locked in a fragile truce born of desperation and fierce will, Marcus Kane understood one immutable truth. Sometimes, to survive the darkness, you must embrace the monster within. And as they stepped into the unknown, side by side, the line between man and beast blurred forever. Marcus Kane's breath hitched as the cavernous corridor ahead flooded with harsh, blinding light, momentarily searing his eyes. The metallic clang of the containment door sliding shut behind him echoed like a death knell, but the overlord's low, guttural hiss beside him was steady, a living reminder that this nightmare was far from over. Yet amid the chaos and carnage, something unprecedented had been forged, an alliance born not of trust but necessity. He glanced sideways at the creature, its obsidian carapace gleaming under the sterile lights. Muscles still taut from their recent battle, despite the scars of conflict etched into the air. The overlord moved with a measured grace, as if wary yet willing to follow. Marcus's heart pounded, not from fear, but from a mixture of adrenaline, hope, and a strange, burgeoning respect. "Overlord," Marcus began, voice rough but steady, "we're not just running from them anymore. We're fighting asterisk for asterisk something, freedom, survival." He swallowed hard, the weight of everything pressing down on him. "But this rage inside you, it's a weapon, and I think I can help you control it." "Harness it." The creature's mandibles clicked softly, a sound that Marcus had come to interpret as cautious acknowledgement. He felt a tide of emotion swell within him, the looming specters of fear and hatred, but also an unexpected thread of hope and trust. This is dangerous, he reminded himself, but it's the only way. As they moved deeper into the labyrinthine complex, echoes of distant gunfire and alien commands rippled through the halls. Marcus's mind raced, replaying the countless betrayals that had led him here, the betrayal by his own command, the loss of his team, the burning memories of his wife and daughter lost to the war. Yet now, those wounds fueled more than vengeance. They ignited a fierce determination to survive and to lead. Suddenly, the corridor ahead erupted in a cacophony of sounds, heavy footsteps, guttural shouts, and the clatter of weapons. Alien soldiers poured into view, their eyes blazing with hostility. Marcus's grip tightened on the communicator device, his fingers trembling but resolute. "They're coming," he whispered, voice taut. "Ready yourself." His gaze locked with the overlord S, and in that instant a silent pact passed between them. No longer prisoner and monster, but comrades in arms. The soldiers advanced, weapons raised, but before they could fire, the overlord unleashed a roar that shook the very steel walls. Its tail whipped in deadly arcs, mandibles snapping like serrated blades through the air. Marcus moved fluidly, modulating the device's frequencies to calm and control the beast's fury, directing its wrath toward their enemies. "Cover me," he barked, sprinting toward a control panel embedded in the wall. The overlord surged forward, a tempest of sinew and exoskeleton, tearing through the soldiers with terrifying precision. Marcus's hands flew over the panel, bypassing security protocols, sweat and blood mingling on his skin. Yet amid the chaos, a sudden, piercing pain shot through Marcus's side, a sharp blow from a hidden attacker. He staggered, vision blurring, but the overlord's massive form shielded him, snarling and striking down the threat. "Stay with me," Marcus gasped, forcing his legs to carry him forward. The lockdown barriers began to retract, the hum of machinery signaling a path to freedom. But their escape was far from assured. From the shadows emerged a figure cloaked in alien armor, an imposing commander, whose eyes burned with cold malice. His voice thundered in a guttural tongue, issuing a challenge. "You think your alliance will save you," the commander sneered. "You are fools." Marcus squared his shoulders, pain forgotten in the fire of defiance. "Together," he said firmly, "we're stronger than you imagined." The overlord's tail lashed, mandibles clicking in a terrifying rhythm as it prepared to strike. Marcus activated the device's highest frequency, channeling the creature's rage into a controlled weapon. The chamber exploded into a symphony of violence, a brutal dance of man and monster unified against a common foe. As the commander fell beneath the overlord's crushing jaws, Marcus's breath came in ragged gasps. The battle was won, but the cost was etched deep into his flesh and soul. He sank to one knee, blood slicking the cold floor, eyes meeting the overlord's once more. The creature emitted a low, resonant hiss, a sound Marcus recognized as a gesture of respect. "We did it," Marcus whispered, voice heavy with exhaustion and triumph. But this is just the beginning. The war outside these walls still raged, a tide of destruction threatening to engulf humanity. Yet now, armed not just with weapons, but with understanding and unity, Marcus felt a fierce hope kindle within him. He looked toward the distant horizon, where the first pale light of dawn stretched across the sky. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with peril, but he was no longer alone. Whatever comes next, he vowed silently, I will lead. For my team, for my family, and for every soul caught in this endless war. Beside him the overlord shifted, its eyes gleaming with unspoken promise, their fates intertwined, bound by a fragile alliance forged in fire and blood. In that moment, Marcus Kane understood a profound truth. True strength did not lie solely in weapons or fury, but in the courage to embrace the unknown, to find kinship in the unlikeliest of places, and to persevere when all seemed lost. The battle was over, the war was just beginning, and together man and monster would face whatever darkness awaited, united, unyielding and unbroken.